Hey, hello, howdy. Kimimaro is one of the most compelling antagonists in all of Naruto, which is pretty crazy. He comes in on the back half of the Sasuke recovery mission and then only returns when he's reanimated. But the second he's on screen, he captures your attention until he's off of it. And there was no other villain in the Sasuke recovery mission that did that, at least not to the same degree as him. So I think it's worth making a video overanalyzing his character and everything he's about, going over everything and missing nothing. So yeah, there's a lot of cover, and I don't want this video being an hour long, so let's just get into it. Kimimaro's name can be split up into two kanji, Kimi and Maro. Kimi means lord or sovereign, or to summarize, ruler, and Maro is just something added to names in Japanese, at least from what I found, but it also means I or me. If you put these two together, it can mean ruler of me, or again, to summarize, free will. I think his name in general alludes to his decision to retrieve Sasuke himself, effectively deciding that he wants to die getting Orochimaru's new vessel since he could no longer be it, which is pretty sad if true, cause Orochimaru kinda, there's no good way to put it, groomed him. Probably have to censor that, but also cause that wasn't a decision Kimimaro made on his own. He only really went after Sasuke cause Kabuto alluded to the idea of it. So even though his name means free will, it's more like toxic influence, which given Kimimaro's backstory and what his character's about, I think is on purpose, so that's cool. Unfortunately, cause I don't know Japanese, I can be wrong here. I did kind of just look up what does Kimimaro mean in Japanese, and this is what I found. Speaking of his name, Kimimaro is from the Kaguya clan, who are obviously not descendants of Kaguya the character. Fucking idiot, what do you think this is?
Kidding.
Even his kekkei genkai, Shikotsumiyaku, is something passed down from Kaguya. It's actually the weaker version of the thing that slimed out Obito. He also looks exactly like her. Here's a side-by-side comparison. I don't need to say anymore. Kimimaro's curse mark is actually pretty interesting, as unlike Sasuke's, his actually originates from the front of his chest instead of the side of his neck. It also has a different design. Sasuke's 3 tomoes close together, while Kimimaro's is 3 tomoes on Ozempic. This is all on purpose too. Sasuke's curse mark is actually the curse mark seal of heaven, while Kimimaro's is the curse mark seal of earth, making it one of the multiple comparisons between them. Okay, editor me for a second. I forgot to mention while recording this, but I actually have an in-universe theory to why Orochimaru gave them different curse marks. Like I just mentioned, Kimimaro is the curse mark seal of heaven, nope, wrong way. Curse mark seal of earth, while Sasuke is the curse mark seal of heaven. And while I think the curse marks are different to obviously just compare them both as characters, Orochimaru probably had a reason for it. My headcanon theory is that he saw Kimimaro as his original ideal vessel, but he got sick and no longer could be that for him. More specifically, he started to show signs of sickness right before the force of death. So my theory is that Orochimaru, being the quote-unquote scientist and experimenter that he is, he probably saw this and then quickly tried to find a reason to why he was experiencing these symptoms. And when he gave a curse mark to Sasuke, his next ideal vessel, he decided to play it safe and give him a different curse mark just in case. Like maybe the earth curse mark was the cause of that, which I don't think is a crazy assumption to make. As we learn at the end of Forest of Death, your body is earth and heaven is your mind. So for Kimimaro to have the earth curse mark, it might have been harder on his body, more specifically his immune system. And maybe it helped him become terminal ill. Maybe it put more stress on his kekkei genkai, which is why he got sick. And the heaven curse mark wouldn't do this, it would just affect your mind instead, which is something I kind of said in Overanalyzing Naruto. Sasuke's mindset completely starts to change as the curse mark takes over more. And I mean, heaven is your mind, you make the connection there. I'm pretty sure I even said this exact thing in Overanalyzing Naruto, like this whole point, I just forgot to put it in this video. So yeah, that's my theory. Intermission over. Kimimaro's curse mark weirdly also has 2 separate designs for its stage 1. The first one looks a lot like his curse mark and the other just doesn't. I think the real reason for this is because Kishimoto was probably very busy, as most mangakas are, and I'm guessing that drawing this design all over Kimimaro for multiple panels would have sucked and would have been way too tedious. So he just simplified it to give himself more time. I think you can come up with an in-universe reason though. If you look at the second version of Kimimaro's stage 1 curse mark, there are some points of it that do resemble the first version. Some parts curve in weird directions, and some are a little more jagged as opposed to the rest of its pretty straight design. And my headcanon to this is that the second version is still the first version, just stretched all across his body, as the jagged ends and weird curves do resemble the original version. It would also just make sense if these were the same. Kimimaro's curse mark didn't just magically change, they came from the same curse mark. He doesn't just have 2 variants, that's not a thing. so I think it has to be that it is the extended version, and Kishimoto probably didn't want to waste time on something that he knew he could simplify. His stage 2 also has a pretty interesting design. His skin changes like everyone else, but he also gets a bunch of bones on his back along with the tail. The bones on his spine area along with his tail help give him the look of some sort of sea monster, something that'll pop up again when we get into what Kimimaro can do. Naruto databooks rank Kimimaro as a 30.5, giving him a 4 in ninjutsu, 5 in taijutsu, 3 in genjutsu, 3.5 in intelligence, 3 in strength, interesting, 4.5 in speed, 4.5 in stamina, and 3 in hand signs. This would put him at around Jonin level in overall strength. For stage 1, I think it's fair to say he's still in that low Jonin level. His stage 1 is an improvement for sure, but it doesn't really feel like as much of a boost as the other stage 1s. His stage 2, however, I think puts him at mid Jonin level at the least. He seems unbeatable here. He only died because he was sick. Like, genuinely, if he was alive for like 5 more seconds, Lee and Gaara would have just died. He also breaks through Gaara's sand like it's nothing, something Guy also did, which I think then makes it possible to make the comparison of the two. Like, base Guy could potentially be of similar strength to stage 2 Kimimaro, and that's not me saying it's a fair comparison to make. There's not really a sample size for either character. I'm just saying you could if you really wanted to. I think it should also be worth noting that databook rankings aren't really a defining factor in determining skill, as characters with specific gimmicks will typically rank lower than their actual skill level. I mentioned this during the Overanalyzing the Sound Ninja 5 video, but Gaara never ranks above a 29.5, which is widely considered the threshold for Jonin level. But Gaara's objectively, at the start of Shippuden, Kage level, which would be above Jonin level. I think in Kimimaro's case, however, it's pretty accurate. He's strong enough to survive against a Kage, but I don't see him beating someone like Kakashi in his base form. Every single one of Kimimaro's techniques come from his kekkei genkai, Shiko Tsumiyaku. It allows him to control his Osteoblast, Osteoclast, and Calcium Density. Type in the comments if you know what that means, then instantly delete it. Fuck out of here with that nerd shit. Basically, all it actually means is that he can control the production of his bones, the breaking down of them, and the density of them, which is what creates his bones popping out and him using them as weapons and defense. This means that Kimimaro can pretty much use any bone in his body as offense and defense. He's used a ton, so I'm just going to list off every one in chronological order. The first one we see is when he has 2 sharp bones coming out of his hands. He's used a similar technique too, but instead of bones coming out of his hands, he also just sends them all around his body. This one acts as a quick offense and defense, as we see when he uses it against Naruto. The one we see after this is one of the more iconic ones. It's when he pulls his bone out of his shoulder and uses it as a mini sword. This is what he uses for a decent amount of his fight against Naruto, and also his main weapon against Lee. It's definitely the most simple way for him to use his bones, but it also seems to be one of the more solid and reliable uses for him. Given that he was sick when we saw him fight, this is probably where I should mention that so many of Kimimaro's bone weapons experience some sort of censorship in the anime, as him pulling out his bones requires a little bit of body horror, and I don't think Studio Pierrot was on board with showing that. Also, side note, I'm like 90% sure this shoulder sword exists because Kishimoto wanted to have a pun about it being a shoulder blade, and you know what? I just refuse to call it that. He also has a technique where he makes a bunch of bones come out of his forearm, pretty much making it so if he lands a punch on someone, that punch will do a lot more damage to them, because they'll be getting stabbed by a bunch of bones at the same time. The first true defense we see him use is where he forces a bunch of ribs out of his body. This was the first thing in Kimimaro's arsenal to truly get Drunken Fist Lee and pretty much sobered him up immediately, which is pretty crazy considering Drunken Fist Lee was keeping up with this. The next true defense we see him use is where he pretty much forces bones all around his body. This is pretty much the ribs defense on steroids, as instead of defending just his front torso, it's defending everywhere around his body. This also got Lee pretty badly. In fact, it got him worse than the ribs defense. One of Kimimaro's cooler attacks is where he uses his fingertips as like bullets and just shoots them at his opponent. I kind of wish we saw this one more, but unfortunately we didn't, because when he used it, Gaara was there and he just shut it down immediately. When he goes into stage 2, it forces more bones out of his body for defense, as multiple bones come out of his back and are also all around the tail he gets from stage 2. I'm pretty sure this isn't something he's consciously doing. I think it's just because he's in stage 2. But I mean, it's bones, and all of his techniques come from bones, so I thought I'd mention it anyways. The next big attack that he has is when he uses his spine as this big flexible sword thing. He pairs this up with a big piece of bone that comes out of his arm, which looks like a drill or the head of a flower. I'll bring these two up later, but for now, that's all I'll say. The last attack he uses is where he makes a shit ton of bones and scatters them all across the floor. I really can't describe it any better. I think the best way to describe it is just to show you. Kimimaro also uses his kekkei genkai for multiple different dances. Every one of them are named after a flower or some sort of plant. So with each one, I'll say what flower or plant it is and what they represent, as they all pertain to Kimimaro as a character. The first one we see is the Willow Dance in chapter 205. In this dance, Kimimaro uses the two bones coming out of his hand and pretty much just blitzes his opponent. This move works really well just in general, but it also seems to work really well against a group of people. For example, we see him use it versus Naruto, and he gets a bunch of clones with this. It also seems to be something that Kimimaro can pair up with other moves, as right after he uses it against Naruto, he pulls off a bunch of other little attacks against his clones, which I don't think could have been possible without him using the Willow Dance right before. Willow flowers, also known as pussy willows, represent resilience. This is to show Kimimaro's resilience to specifically his illness, as he was extremely sick, but he still came out here regardless to fulfill what he now sees as his purpose. The next dance we see is the Camellia Dance in chapter 211. This one he tries to use against Drunken Fist Lee. He uses his shoulder sword to throw a bunch of stabs and then one big slice. This one in my opinion is pretty underrated. Like, it would work against so many people. It just so happens that he used it against Drunken Fist Lee, which is unlucky. The Camellia flower actually represents devotion, which is obviously referring to Kimimaro's devotion to Orochimaru. Something shown with the fact that he's here. Like, he knows he'll die doing this, but he wants to be useful to Orochimaru. Kinda reminds us of someone. The next dance we see is the Larch Dance in chapter 212. In this dance, he has bones coming out all over his torso, and then he spins like a Beyblade to create a strong defense and a counterattack. He uses it against Lee and puts him in a fucking blender. The larch flower symbolizes boldness, audacity, and courage, which I think is to show that Kimimaro as a character is very bold and courageous for doing this. Like, him going out here regardless of condition is insane. The Clematis Dance is the one he uses right after. He uses it in chapter 216, and it's the one that includes the spine sword thing and the drill. In this dance, he uses the spine sword to curl around his opponent, then he uses his drill to drill them. There's no better way to put it. In Kimimaro's own words, the spine sword is the vine and the drill is the flower, which I think is cool. I like that it keeps up with the flower concept even though it really didn't need to. This one's also really strong. If pretty much anyone got by the spine, they would most likely die. It's just unfortunate he was going up against Gaara. The Clematis flower also symbolizes mental beauty, which I think for Kimimaro is meant to highlight his mindset, because as Kimimaro says himself, he's using the power of his mind to move. Not to mention all the other meanings behind the flower so far. He's showing his resilience, his devotion to Orochimaru, and the courage to do what he's doing. And all of that is mental. And I think this flower is meant to show how strong his mindset is. The final dance he uses is obviously the Bracken Dance in chapter 217. This is the one I think everyone knows. He makes a ton of bones spike out from under the ground and it looks fucking sick. The bones go everywhere and also very high. Like, if his opponent is on the ground, they're dead. It's just, again, unfortunate his opponent at the time was Gaara, someone who can make himself float with his sand. But even then, this almost killed him. It's also obviously his most powerful dance too, and it's just not even close. This is like 99% of the time an instant kill. And if his opponent survives, he can merge his body with the bones and sneak up on them. He'll pair that up with the drill thing he has during the Clematis Dance. And I mean, if his opponent wasn't dead earlier, they're dead now. The only reason he didn't kill Gaara and Lee here is because he died from illness. Like I said, if he was alive for like 3 more seconds, they would be dead. The Bracken Dance is also the only dance not based off a flower and instead a fern, which is interesting. These ferns tend to grow in groups, which I think is why the dance is named after them. As you can see each individual bone here as a bracken growing in a big group. The ferns also could technically have meaning, as they typically do survive during forest fires, which could symbolize endurance, which could pertain to Kimimaro. He fought his illness for a while and endured up until the end. Not to mention before the Bracken Dance, Kimimaro was kind of getting his shit kicked in by Gaara. Like, Gaara tried to crush him twice and he survived both of them. It also could be the Bracken Dance because Kimimaro stage 2 looks like a sea monster. And I mean, Bracken, Bone Kraken. It sounds stupid, but you never know. I honestly think it's a mix of all of them. It's the fern because it grows in groups and because of endurance, but also because of the goofy ass Bone Kraken thing. Kimimaro's backstory is pretty much all anime only, but since it only really adds depth to his character, I think it's worth talking about in this video, even if it isn't technically canon, so yeah. His backstory is pretty sad. He was the only member in the Kaguya clan that had Shikotsu Miyaku, so they feared him and literally imprisoned him. This led Kimimaro to not have any purpose in his life. He felt useless. One day though, the Kaguya clan was gonna pull off a coup and they needed Kimimaro for it. This of course was giving him purpose, so he did it. When running to the Mist Village, he came across Haku and Zabuza, who at the time were leaving it, which I'll bring back up later, so pay fucking attention. Also, while running to the Mist Village, he sees Orochimaru and tries to jump him. He doesn't do anything, obviously, but they still interact with each other. Kimimaro then goes to the Mist Village and helps carry out the coup. By the morning though, he's the only surviving member of the Kaguya clan. He then comes across Orochimaru again, who offers to take him in. Over time, Orochimaru grooms him, and at some point he's given the curse mark. He then becomes the leader of the Sound Ninja 5, and by the Chunin exams, he's going with Orochimaru and the Sound Ninja 5 to kill the Grass Ninja. At some point before then, however, he gets sick, which we'll get into later. He also helps Orochimaru and Kabuto kill the Kazekage, but in this moment, Orochimaru and Kabuto fully realize how sick he is. He's bedridden from this point onward as his condition worsens, and yeah, that's pretty much his backstory. Now that we have that out the way, I can finally get into this. Kimimaro is realistically 3 characters combined. He's Haku, Sasuke, and Itachi put together. Just like Haku, he's seen as a tool and not seen as a person, and he's seen differently mainly out of fear of his kekkei genkai. And I think that's why during Kimimaro's backstory, he accidentally runs into Haku. Like, Zabuza even says this:
"His eyes were the same as mine."
And even though, yeah, this is anime only, I still think it was something shown because someone on the production team realized Kishimoto's intention. Haku's the first example of a shinobi being seen as a tool, and at least for OG Naruto, Kimimaro is the last version. Which is something I brought up during overanalyzing Naruto, but I might as well mention again here. For why he's similar to Sasuke, I think I should just play a clip from that same episode, because I think I put it best there. Number 1, Sasuke has black hair, Kimimaro has white. Number 2, Sasuke has a heaven curse mark on the backside of his body, while Kimimaro has an earth curse mark on the front of his body. Number 3, both characters are heavily associated with their own clans. Number 4, both characters have kekkei genkai from said clans. Number 5, each character's clan have been almost completely wiped out. And number 6, both of them went to Orochimaru because of something related to their clan. For Itachi, it's a little subtle, but I still think he's similar, as their vibes and the tones they set feel a lot alike at times. They both seem serious and sinister, but also calm at the same time, which I do think is just a common tactic to make a character feel experienced and in turn strong. But it should be noted, they do give the same uneasy feeling for the viewer, and that's just something other characters don't do, at least not to the same degree. Not only that, but they both got sick and died from it while fighting, and while their illnesses weren't the same thing, it's still a comparison. Which actually brings me to the fact that both Itachi and Kimimaro's illnesses aren't actually explained. When the topic of what their illnesses are is brought up, a lot of people just say, oh, the plot killed them, cause they don't have a brain. They don't actually want to think about it, they just want to seem smarter than they actually are. There are so many things in every piece of media you can just answer with that question. Like, Naruto is the character he is because of the plot. You are a dumbass because of the plot. Like, I don't think it's crazy to assume that it happened because of his kekkei genkai. Like, him constantly changing his bone's density and production caused his cells to become weaker, and each time he used his kekkei genkai, he subsequently would be hurting his body more and more. And this is backed up by the fact that Kabuto, a medical ninja, couldn't give him proper treatment, as Kimimaro's cells are so unique because of his kekkei genkai, and because there's not much known about Shikotsu Miyaku, Kabuto didn't know how to treat him. This is also extra backed up by the fact that the second he used his larger scale attack, the Bracken Dance, he died shortly after. And while yeah, I do think the curse mark also had something to do with why he died here, it did happen at the same time. Correlation doesn't mean causation, but I mean, there's still correlation. I think you could also make the point that there was an outside reason to why he got sick and why Kabuto couldn't treat him. Like, Kimimaro was in a cell for a good part of his life, and that probably didn't have the nicest conditions. Not to mention, he was in the Hidden Mist, a place that is on the very east of the world. And I mean, imagine the weather changing. Who's to say his cells didn't become weaker, plus an underlying illness made him become terminally ill? Obviously, that's all headcanon, and honestly, I don't personally believe it, but I still think it's a valid thought to have. Like, it's just an idea. I refuse to say the plot. I think it's more interesting to think of a reason and give one than put on my Reddit embroidered fedora and act like I know shit. Kimimaro technically has 3 fights, even though he's only on screen for a select few episodes. These fights are obviously against Naruto, Lee, and Gaara, and we'll go over each fight and what they do for him. starting of course with Naruto. This really shouldn't be considered a fight. The only notable thing that happens is Kimimaro uses the Willow Dance, and Naruto temporarily has a little bit of Nine-Tails chakra. Other than that though, it's just Kimimaro killing Naruto's clones. There isn't even a real end to this fight either. Lee just comes in and saves Naruto, and then he just leaves. This fight's true purpose though is basically to introduce Kimimaro and his kekkei genkai, as him constantly taking out Naruto's clones shows he's powerful while also showing us a base idea of what his kekkei genkai can do. His next fight is with Lee, and this fight really helps flesh out Kimimaro's kekkei genkai. Like, he uses it pretty heavily here, and the way he uses it shows his versatility. He uses it for strong defense, then shows his main ways of attack, like his shoulder sword and his forearm bones. He also uses the clematis and large dance here, 40% of his total dances, as well as curse mark stage 1, which will be more important during his fight with Gaara. The actual fight itself versus Lee is a great example of two clear masters of their craft just going at it. Like, it's taijutsu master versus kenjutsu master, which I think is really cool. The fight starts off with Kimimaro having the upper hand, which isn't really surprising. Like, don't get me wrong, Lee's entrance, amazing. Was this gonna be close though? Hell no. This does change though, the second Lee hits his Chug Jug, as he's the GOAT at Drunken Fists, and base Kimimaro has trouble keeping up. They continue to go taijutsu versus kenjutsu in this really cool fight sequence. I'm still overanalyzing it, by the way, I didn't forget. Anyways, after Lee kind of bests them in their little fight, Kimimaro decides to pull out the curse mark and his forearm bones. After this, there's a little taijutsu versus taijutsu choreography, but Kimimaro gets a good hit off on Lee. Lee then sobers up and decides to open up gate 1, but even that fails. And at this point, Kimimaro is about to kill Lee, but Gaara then shows up cause why not? I think it's fair to say that if this fight went on for any longer, Lee would have lost. Realistically, he didn't stand a chance. Kimimaro was just gonna beat him no matter what. It's a lot like his entrance. Was it cool? Yeah. Was there a chance? Fuck no. Kimimaro's fight with Gaara obviously ends with him dying, but I think it's still fair to say he won this fight. He had Gaara here, he just ended up dying from his illness. I've said it so many times in this video, but you give him 3 more seconds and both Gaara and Lee are dead. Gaara even admits this. He wins this fight here because of stage 2 in the Bracken dance. Like, in stage 2, he overpowers Gaara's sand and just hits through it. Then after Gaara had to use a bunch of chakra to put Kimimaro deep in the ground, Kimimaro just uses Bracken dance, and then again only dies because he was sick. His fight with Gaara, in my opinion, is the best out of the 3 fights. It starts with him shooting his fingertips at Gaara, who defends it without a problem and then snatches Kimimaro's legs. Gaara then sand coffins his ass, but Kimimaro survives because of stage 1 curse mark. Look at the body horror on this, by the way. If only it wasn't censored to hell. Gaara then decides to hit him with Sand Tsunami, which Kimimaro survives again. He survives this time though because of stage 2. Something about this fight that really separates it from his ones with Lee and Naruto is how serious it feels. Like, Gaara isn't messing around and Kimimaro's clearly getting a lot more serious. And it feels like 2 actual demons are fighting, which is so cool. Anyways, because of stage 2, Kimimaro is just locked in. He breaks through Gaara's sand and just blitzes him. Like, Gaara tries to defend it, but it just doesn't work well. He rocks his shit here, by the way, which had to have been revenge for this. Kimimaro then tries to use Clematis Dance, but Gaara manages to defend it. Gaara then decides to send him to hell again, but Kimimaro pulls out the Bracken Dance. This forces Gaara to pick up both himself and Lee so they can float with his sand. And at this point, Gaara is very low on chakra. He just had 2 big scale moves, so it's kind of understandable. But once Gaara picks them up, Kimimaro then comes from behind as he's merged with the Bracken Dance. As he's about to kill Gaara and Lee, however, he dies from his illness. The whole moment is so cool. Like, he was right there. You give him 3 more seconds, like I said, and they're dead, but he can't. His fight with Gaara was really meant to just let him cook. Like, he uses the 2 coolest dances in his arsenal. He also goes into stage 2 and is a demon throughout the entire fight. Even his finger bullets are cool. Like, this is his best fight. Easily. He obviously died because of his illness, but I also think it's worth mentioning that the curse mark also probably helped accelerate it. We know that the curse mark is like sage mode, but the evil version, so it'll give the user an insane boost in chakra and strength, which, to me at least, means that this insane boost in chakra and strength isn't something that Kimimaro's immune system can handle, which is backed up by the fact that chakra points are close to organs within the human body. And since it's an evil sage mode and an evil power boost, it means his body would feel the consequences of using it, something that doesn't happen with with normal Sage mode or normal power boosts. And on top of that, since he's sick and has a weaker immune system, it means he actually is feeling the effects of stage 2 in real time, which is what led to him dying as soon as he used it. It's like he's a phone on 10% and he just turned his brightness up all the way, which I did say in Overanalyzing Naruto, but I still think is valid. I think this plus his illness is why he died here, which again is just a great moment. The fact he dies here is just like such a peak moment. Kimimaro is one of the most compelling antagonists in all of Naruto, which is pretty crazy. He comes in on the back half of the Sasuke recovery mission and then only returns when he's reanimated. But the second he's on screen, he captures your attention until he's off of it. And there was no other villain in the Sasuke recovery mission that did that, at least not to the same degree as him. He embodies some of the best themes of the entire show. He shows how shinobi are used as tools and how many very talented shinobi will die young. Not to mention, he shows unwavering loyalty, another big theme in Naruto. And he's also just amazing. He's like the ultimate wildcard during the Sasuke recovery mission and filled that role perfectly. So I thought it was worth making a video overanalyzing his character and everything he's about, going over everything and missing nothing. And that's exactly what I did. During this video, you may have realized the cool background music from like the Marias and Bibadoobie. And if you're wondering how I did that, it's called making no money. So if you can, subscribe, like, any button there besides the dislike button, do that. And if you want to support me any more than just watching this video, you can become a member on Patreon. And yeah, let me know what character you want next.